My journey to Islam began not with a quest for a new faith, but with a firm conviction in my own. As an American doctor, I was confident in my knowledge, my skills, and the Christian beliefs I had held dear my entire life. I saw faith as a source of comfort and guidance, and I believed I had a duty to share that light with others. This sense of purpose led me to a colleague, a fellow professional who was a devout Muslim. My intention was simple and, I believed, righteous. I wanted to guide him away from what I perceived as a flawed path and bring him to Christianity. I was certain that once he understood my faith, he would see its truth. I prepared my arguments, marshaled my verses, and embarked on what I thought was a mission of salvation for him. What I didn't anticipate was that this mission would become my own. Every conversation we had, every point I raised, was met not with defensiveness, but with calm, reasoned explanations. He spoke of his faith with a certainty that was both gentle and unshakable. He didn't just counter my arguments. He presented a different way of seeing the world, one that was built on a foundation of pure logic and submission to a single, all-powerful creator. I had come to convert, but I found myself listening, truly listening, for the first time. The more I tried to show him the light of my faith, the more I found myself drawn to the clarity of his. The mission I had set for myself was slowly turning back on me, forcing me to question everything I thought I knew. I started my own private research, determined to find the inconsistencies I was sure existed within Islam. I read the Quran, initially looking for faults, but instead, I discovered a text that spoke directly to the heart and the mind. It was as if a veil was being lifted from my eyes. The questions I had harbored deep within my own faith, questions about the nature of God, the purpose of life, and my place in the universe, were being answered with a profound simplicity that I had never encountered before. My colleague's patient demeanor had opened a door, and with every page I read, I walked further through it. My well-intentioned mission to convert him had instead launched me on the most significant journey of my life. The initial confidence I felt in my mission began to crumble, replaced by a burgeoning curiosity and a sense of awe. I was trained in medicine, a field grounded in evidence, logic, and observable facts. I started to see those same principles mirrored in the structure of Islam. It wasn't a religion of blind faith alone. It was a complete system for living, one that appealed to the intellect as much as it did the soul. My attempt to convert a Muslim colleague had failed spectacularly. In its place, however, a new and far more personal mission had taken root, the mission to understand the truth that was unfolding before me, a truth that was beginning to feel more like home than the one I had known my entire life. One of the first concepts in Islam that took hold of my mind was the profound idea of accountability. The Quran spoke of a day when every soul would stand before God and answer for every single deed, big or small. At first, this notion terrified me. The thought of a permanent, unblinking record of my life, every mistake, every shortcut, every unkind word, was overwhelming. In my previous faith, the concept of grace often felt like a safety net that softened the edges of personal responsibility. But Islam presented a different equation. Your actions were your own, and you alone would be answerable for them. This was a heavy burden to consider, and it filled me with a sense of dread I had never experienced before. However, as I continued to reflect on this principle, my fear slowly transformed into a powerful sense of purpose. I began to see accountability not as a threat, but as the ultimate motivation. If I was truly responsible for everything I did, then every moment held immense significance. This wasn't about earning salvation through works, but about consciously choosing good over evil in every aspect of life. The idea of being watched by God became less about judgment and more about a constant, loving reminder to be the best version of myself. It became, in essence, a personal war against my own worst impulses, and a powerful incentive to cultivate goodness, kindness, and integrity in my work and in my relationships. This new perspective began to shape my daily life, especially in my profession as a doctor. Suddenly, my work wasn't just a career. It was an act of worship and a field of accountability. Every patient I treated, every diagnosis I made, was an action that would be weighed on my scale of deeds. This motivated me to be more diligent, more compassionate, and more thorough than ever before. It pushed me to go the extra mile, not for praise or professional advancement, but because I knew I would have to answer for the quality of care I provided. The concept of divine accountability had become a guiding principle that elevated my professional and ethical standards to a level I hadn't thought possible. Ultimately, this principle gave my life a new and profound dimension. Life was no longer a random series of events, but a purposeful journey where every choice mattered. The fear of God's judgment evolved into a healthy awareness that inspired me to live a more conscious and righteous life. This wasn't about being perfect, but about the constant struggle and effort to do good. Islam was teaching me that true freedom wasn't the absence of rules, but the willing submission to a divine framework that encouraged justice, compassion, and personal responsibility. The weight of accountability had become the very thing that lifted me up, giving me a reason to strive for excellence in all that I did. The intellectual journey into Islam was exhilarating, but the emotional journey was agonizing. The most difficult part of my conversion was not the adoption of new practices, but the letting go of old certainties. For 2 or 3 excruciating weeks, I was trapped in a state of internal conflict. I had to confront the possibility that the religion I was born into, the faith that had shaped my identity and comforted me through every trial, might not be the complete truth from God. This realization felt like a betrayal, not of God, but of my family, my community, and my own past. It was a deeply personal and painful process to admit that what I had believed so fervently for so long could be wrong. A profound sense of stubbornness took hold of me during this period. My heart resisted what my mind was beginning to accept. Leaving my lifelong faith felt like abandoning a part of myself. There was also a deep-seated embarrassment. How could I, a logical and educated woman, have been on the wrong path all this time? How could I face my family and friends and tell them that everything they had taught me, everything we had shared, was something I could no longer fully accept? These feelings created a formidable wall around my heart, and for a while I refused to take that final step, clinging to the familiar even as I knew it no longer fit. The struggle was isolating. I couldn't speak to my family about it for fear of causing them pain, and I was still hesitant to fully confide in my Muslim colleague. It was a battle fought entirely within my own mind and soul. I would read the Quran and feel a sense of peace and clarity, only to be plunged back into doubt and turmoil moments later by the memory of a church hymn or a cherished family tradition. It felt as though I was standing on a bridge between 2 worlds, unable to go back but terrified to move forward. The person I had always been was pulling me in one direction, while the person I was becoming was pulling me in another. Eventually, the intellectual honesty I valued as a scientist and a doctor won out. I had to follow the evidence, and the evidence I had found in Islam was too compelling to ignore. The agony of letting go was the price of embracing a truth that resonated more deeply with my soul. It required me to dismantle a core part of my identity and rebuild it on a new foundation. It was a humbling and shattering experience, but it was also a necessary one. I had to break free from the comfort of tradition and the fear of judgment to finally embrace the path that my heart and mind told me was true. The pain of this transition was immense, but the peace that waited on the other side was immeasurable. As I delved deeper into Islamic teachings, I was struck by how everything was designed with a clear and logical purpose. My final decision to embrace Islam was not a leap of faith in the dark, but a calculated step based on reason. I posed a simple question to myself: what if the afterlife, the day of judgment, and all the promises of paradise and warnings of hell were not real? What would I lose by living as a Muslim in this life? The answer was clear. I would lose nothing. In fact, I would gain a life of immense benefit. The rules and prohibitions in Islam were not arbitrary restrictions, but a divine prescription for a healthy, stable, and fulfilling existence here on earth. I looked at the prohibitions first. The bans on alcohol, intoxicants, and gambling, for example, were not just moral edicts. They were practical safeguards. As a doctor, I had seen firsthand the devastating effects of addiction on individuals and families. The ruined health, the broken relationships, the financial despair. Islam's prohibitions were a protective shield against these very real-world problems. Similarly, the emphasis on modesty and clear boundaries between the sexes seemed logical in a society grappling with exploitation and the breakdown of the family unit. These rules were not meant to oppress, but to preserve honor, dignity, and social harmony, protecting people from illness, despair, and a difficult life. On the other side of the equation were the positive commands, the pillars of prayer, fasting, charity, and maintaining family ties. I saw these not as burdensome rituals, but as a complete, integrated package for personal and societal well-being. The 5 daily prayers provided moments of peace, reflection, and a direct connection to God, grounding me throughout my busy day. The fast of Ramadan taught discipline, empathy for the poor, and gratitude for God's blessings. The command to give charity built a compassionate society where the wealthy were responsible for the needy. Following these commands would undoubtedly make me a better, more disciplined, and more generous person, improving my life and the lives of those around me. This was the final piece of the logical puzzle for me. I reasoned that if I followed Islam, I would live a healthier, more purposeful, and more community-oriented life. If it turned out there was no afterlife, I would have lost nothing, and would have lived the best possible life on earth. However, if the afterlife was real, and I had rejected the truth after it had become clear to me, then I would lose everything. The choice became simple. It was a win-win proposition. Embracing Islam was the most logical decision I could make, one that promised a better life now and the ultimate reward in the hereafter. It was a path that satisfied both my intellect and my soul's desire for a meaningful existence. Since reciting the Shahada and formally embracing Islam, the internal turmoil that once defined my days has been replaced by a profound sense of comfort and freedom. There are no regrets, only a quiet gratitude for being guided to this path. I feel liberated, not from rules, but from the confusion and ambiguity that once clouded my understanding of God and my purpose. Islam did not ask me to abandon logic. It demanded I use it. This is why I believe Islam holds such a powerful attraction for so many educated people in the modern world. It is a faith that challenges the intellect and satisfies the soul, providing clear, comprehensive answers to life's most profound questions. The intellectual appeal of Islam is undeniable. In an age of information, people are no longer content with doctrines that require blind acceptance or contradict scientific reasoning. Islam has a rich history of celebrating knowledge and encouraging intellectual inquiry, a legacy from its golden age that continues to resonate with scholars, scientists, and professionals today. The Quran itself is presented as a book of signs, urging humanity to reflect on the natural world and use their reason to recognize the existence of a creator. For those of us trained to seek evidence and coherence, this rational foundation is incredibly compelling and refreshing. It offers a worldview where faith and reason are not adversaries but partners in the pursuit of truth. Furthermore, Islam provides a deep spiritual fulfillment that many find lacking in the materialism of secular society. It offers a holistic way of life, addressing not just the spiritual but also the social, ethical, and personal dimensions of human existence. Its universal message transcends race, ethnicity, and nationality, promoting a brotherhood and sisterhood based on shared faith and devotion to one God. This message of unity, social justice, and personal accountability speaks to a deep human need for meaning and connection, attracting those who are disillusioned with a world that often feels fractured and superficial. The clarity of its core teaching, the absolute oneness of God, eliminates the need for intermediaries and complex theological mysteries. Ultimately, increased access to information has been a major catalyst. The internet has allowed people like me to bypass sensationalist media portrayals and engage directly with authentic Islamic sources and communities. We can listen to lectures from renowned scholars, read translations of the Quran, and connect with Muslims from all walks of life. This direct access empowers individuals to investigate the faith for themselves and make an informed, personal decision. For me, this journey from a confident missionary to a content Muslim has been the greatest blessing of my life. I found a faith that did not ask me to choose between my mind and my heart, but instead united them in peaceful submission to the truth.